Hey guys. Guys?
There's an Adam. Oh, it's a 101.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Pack to the Future podcast. I'm your host of the day, Dr. Chad.
Someone called for a doctor?
He's not here. He's probably knocking on eBay's door to fight for my Donovan Mitchell. Let's give it up for Ricky, a.k.a. Mr. eBay. Unbeknownst to him, I'm recording live in his studio right now. Please give it up for Dr. Tim.
Here we go, baby. Prepare to be underwhelmed.
Welcome into the show today. We've got a great new episode with new content and lineup for you. Our feature presentation, if you will, is going to be the conversation between Steve and Hugo, aka Showley or S. Halley, and Nebrolian_PC. Great longtime listeners of the show. Great hobby friends, I can say at this point. We reached out to them with Ricky and Tim finishing up their final weeks of summer vacation. And we asked them if they'd like an open mic. So they came on and have a great conversation involving their PC. They talk Panini. They talk about what keeps them engaged in the hobby. Something you're not going to want to miss and will be coming up here in just a couple minutes. Before we do that, from my end, I'm going to go over some recent eBay mail days with you. We're going to talk about a future show and a little bit of a call to action. And then we're going to tease some merchandise as well. So let me get into this before we bring on Steve and Hugo. And guys, for me with Mail Day, after the Dallas show, which we documented last month, I've been on a little bit of a hiatus from picking up cards. I did buy a few initially that I'm going to talk about today, but since that time, kind of been saving up some of those excess funds, looking at maybe making a little bit larger purchase. But with football season in the air, the birds are still singing. There's a little hint of that crisp fall weather first thing in the morning. Those football vibes are coming back, and I can't help myself. I've been buying some football. First of all, to start, adding on to the 2012 NFL Prism Silver Collection. And this is something that I've been building upon, for the last 6 months to a year now. But I picked up some ones that have really been fun for me over the past month. I think I talked about this previously, but Calvin Johnson, PSA 10 Silver. Very limited pop count there. It was the 2012 season where he set the all-time single-season receiving yards record, which still stands today. Was able to grab that. Very happy with that one. Pair that with my Matthew Stafford from the Lions. Who would have thought I'd ever be saying those words? But happy to add that one to the collection. Also grabbed a Julio Jones Silver PSA 9. And admittedly, I grabbed that immediately after he signed with the Bucs, thinking that perhaps maybe he's got a little bit of juice left in the tank and Tom Brady would help to resurrect his name and maybe his career a little bit. Well, that would be, of course, if Tom Brady decided to show up to Buccaneers camp. That would probably help. So, Tom, let's finish up whatever you're doing and go throw that ball to Julio. And then lastly, Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson for me has been interesting. I own more Russell Wilson cards right now than I do Peyton Manning cards, which as a Bronco fan is unique, especially considering Peyton Manning not only played several years with the Broncos, set records, won a Super Bowl, but also the fact that Russell Wilson has never even played a regular season down. Actually, hasn't even played a down to this point for the Broncos. But his rookie year being that 2012 season fitting into my Prism Silver collection, I saw an SGC 9.5 and just couldn't pass it up. So, pop one on this SGC 9.5. I did grab the silver. It pairs very nicely with the silver autograph that I have. I think that my Russell Wilson spending, at least for right now, is going to be put on hold, at least until the guy plays again with the Broncos. Lastly, I did pick up one basketball card, 2020-2021 Flux Titan Black Scope, Donovan Mitchell. Now, admittedly, I've been a bit of a critic about critic about Flux. It's tough to endorse and really be happy about new Panini products, especially how far behind they are and still putting out products from the previous year. It really makes you scratch your head and say, okay, why are we pumping out new stuff? But this black scope, numbered to 8 Donovan Mitchell, really popped. I love the color scheme of it, and you know those color schemes can really grab me. This one did. I purchased it about a month ago. I didn't realize until after I bought it and paid for it that it was an international seller. So the card technically hasn't arrived to me, so it's not really a mail day. But I'm certain, with eBay's track record, I'm sure that card will get to me, right? All right, so those are my mail days. Let me know. I'm still working on that 2012 Prism Silver set. Let me know who you think I should go after next. I've got a majority of the big guys. I don't have the Brady. That one's going to be a little bit difficult for me to swing. It's still in my goals, but financially, that one's going to be a little bit tricky. So whoever you think I should go grab next, please let me know. All right, moving on to an upcoming episode, and really a call out for any listeners to not only give us some help with this, but also see if we can help you. We're going to bring on my wife, Mrs. Doc, Sarah. She has an organizing background in history, and I want her to talk about organizing our collections in the future. So we're going to give her some parameters, and she'll give us some general guidance. But if your collection is in need of organization and you have some specific questions for her, please let us know. Reach out to us. Best way to do that would be to leave a voicemail through our website at pttfpodcast.com. That's pttfpodcast.com. You can click on the link, leave us a voicemail, and see what types of recommendations she would have for you. Interestingly for her, not a collector, but an organizer. And so we'll make sure on that episode to have the guys on and perhaps have some banter back and forth and hopefully give you some good recommendations there. So you'll have that to look forward to. All right, guys, lastly, before we get into the conversation with Steve and Hugo, I want to talk a little bit about merchandise. Ricky, Tim, and I have been chatting about this. We want to give you the exclusive opportunity right now at a Back to the Future podcast t-shirt. Now, we're going to be looking at just pre-sale interest at this point. We're going to be looking $20 to $25, black t-shirt, nice, stamped on logo with that kind of refractor hollow finish that actually Boston Steve talked about at the National. This will be a first edition shirt. We're going to have different editions that will come out across the year. So this will be your first chance at checking out this shirt. We are going to be looking probably 4 to 6 weeks to get these out there to you. You won't need to pay immediately, but we just want interest on this. So I'll post sizing of the t-shirts up on the website. But if you are interested, email us, packtothefuturepodcast@gmail.com, or send us a message on Instagram at packtothefuturepodcast. All right, everyone. So before we get into our main conversation of the day, I want to remind you how you could reach us. I mentioned these before. Instagram's really the great way that we can have immediate communication. Pack to the Future Podcast. Go check us out there. But our website, Ricky and Tim have done a fantastic job recently posting blogs with new photos of our cards, our shenanigans, even recording over there in Tim's studio with photos and great content there. You can get our show discount codes to Zion Cases, Built Bar, and all of our affiliates, including our eBay affiliate link as well. Go check out that website, pttfpodcast.com. Enough of the teasing. We have Boston Steve. We have Hugo from Nebrolian_PC. Guys, they did a fantastic job. I left this so open to them. I said, here's a microphone, have at it. And they produced a great outline for you. You guys are going to love their conversation. If this is something that you would like to do and have an open mic in future shows with us, let us know. Give us feedback. Let us know what you think about this, and perhaps we'll be featuring you on a future episode. All right, everyone, the guys will be back in the studio next week. Here are Steve and Hugo.
All right, what's up, everyone? Hugo and Boston Steve here doing a little, I don't know, Hugo, there's got to be a formal name for this, right? Fill-in host or guest spot for the Pack to the Future podcast. I guess you could say we're friends of the show or frenemies, but Why don't we tell everyone why we're here and introduce ourselves? I'm gonna shut up for a second, Hugo, and kick it over to you. Give a quick introduction to yourself and how you got here chatting with me online about sports cards.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, everyone? It's Hugo. I go on Instagram by Nabrolian underscore PC. I'd like to say that I'd like to see ourselves today as super subs. So just for the listeners, super subs, it's fine by me. Yeah, I mean, I've been collecting sports cards for the past 6.5 years, with my primary focus being football cards, and started branching out a couple of years ago. I've always loved basketball. I'm a huge Kentucky Wildcats fan. I also really like French basketball players, myself being from France. So I've been branching out. So that's how I got into Wax Museum podcast. Another friend of the Back to the Future podcast. And one day we had the infamous Boston Steve on one of those episodes, and I reached out because you had kind of mentioned how you keep track of your collections, especially the Crowder PC. And I reached out. I thought your methodology and how you kept track of everything was great. And you replied, and we've been talking to each other for probably two years or so, give or take.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. And getting more into basketball cards. COVID hit. So what can I do at home? It's collecting sports cards. Gets pricey, especially in 2020 with the boom of the sports cards and the hype in the industry, whatever you want to call it. And I started listening more and more episodes or more and more shows, sports related, not sports related, and I found Back to the Future, and I've been a fan and a serious listener every single week since basically 2020. So what about you, Steve?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a weekly listen, right? And so if you guys are fans of the show, you might recognize my voice. I do call in every now and then. Ricky's dubbed me Boston Steve. I'm on social media at Showley2003. As Hugo, as you were saying, I've definitely been on with Kyle on the Wax Museum podcast a few times. I've been in it a little bit longer than you, bud. I've been, as an adult, doing it for a decade now. I don't think I've ever told the guys this, but it was a 92-93 Beam team, Michael Jordan, that got me back into it. I went to a little midlife crisis and ripped a box of that from Amazon for $25, 92-93 Stadium Club, and hit a Jordan. And it was like being a kid again. And now I'm several dollars into this deep black hole, right? Like, what do we get ourselves into? But yeah, like you said, the pandemic, I mean, it wasn't good, but some of the stuff that we learned is how to connect with each other in the hobby. And I think being comfortable doing stuff like this, Zoom in, and got to know, I've listened to Back to the Future podcast. I'll admit, I listened to probably their second or third episode at the start of the pandemic, and quality wasn't that great. Sorry, guys, you've definitely improved since then. And I was iffy on it, and I stepped away, and then someone else in the hobby said, no, give it another listen. These guys are hilarious. And it's just talking shop. And you and I are in a group chat with them, and we made a joke about, how I'm trying to get you to do your Angry Frenchman podcast with what grinds your hobby gears. And Chad reached out to us and was like, hey, could you guys fill in for a spot? So here we are. And so everyone listening, just buckle in, saddle up. Chad said we can have as much time as we want. So we got 3 hours of the two of us talking back and forth. No, we don't. We did throw together a little agenda. We're just Hugo and I are going to throw some ideas off each other, have some hobby talk. Hope everyone enjoys it, and we'll go from there. So Hugo, what I think we wanted to start with is just kind of talking about our current hobby experiences, what we're seeing. We both collect different things. I'm primarily basketball with, I dabble in some football and some baseball, even a little hockey. And you're the other way. You do mostly football and dabble in the other sports. So what have you been up to in the hobby recently? What's been, exciting you? What trends have you seen? Pricing, you talked about, pricing and the expense of it all. So where you been at with collecting these days?
Yeah, great question. So disclaimer, I'm not since it's not my podcast, I'm going to put some filter on because I don't want to receive any death threats, this week or after the episode has been released. I really started collecting football. Kind of finding my place in this hobby. Not that I'm seeking for anybody's approval, but what do I really like? I can say now that after six and a half years, I've found what gets me going, what I'm really passionate about. And when it comes to football, it really is one guy. It's Andre Johnson. In the group chat, I've been known for making poor decisions as a sports fan. So I'm a Houston Texans. There's a few happens. Mistakes were made. Hearts were broken. But yeah, Andre Johnson is he's one of the greatest wide receivers I've ever seen or watched. While I was here in the US, because it was kind of difficult to follow the NFL while in Europe back in the days in the 90s or early 2000s. Trying to chase cards that really speak to me. I'm looking for scarcity, rarity. So game one patches for sure. I'm going, if I can get a one-on-one, shields, a piece of the jersey that's the team's logo or swoosh or Reebok or whatnot, something really specific.
Specifically, does JJ Watt, does he have any game used Letterman jacket cards from when they rocked that Letterman jacket to Fall First Team? Just ask it, because that'd be a pretty cool card, right?
Be amazing.
Maybe one of the biggest mistakes a team has ever made walking into the Razor.
Talking about scarcity, that would be the
I would super collect that set. I would put that together and frame it for you, buddy.
For sure. JJ Watt has not that many game one cards, so I'm fortunate to have two of those. But then it's just very difficult to track, and I kind of prioritize and I have my pyramid that I've never posted on social media, but I try to stick to it. And yeah, I've got Tony Parker, the greatest French basketball player, who's obviously not part of the top 75 NBA players, whatever. They put them in Lillard. Okay, cool. I've been collecting Parker. I do not discriminate. So Spurs, Hornets, same thing. Rare cards, stuff that appeals to me. So it's can be from a one-on-one to a gold, can be tops, can be Panini, game one as well, on-count autos. I'm trying to stay away from stickers. And what I also really collect, or what I really enjoy too, is at a lesser level, it's soccer, because I'm French and that's always been my first love. If I were richer, I would have an incredible Kylian Mbappe PC, but it's not possible. I missed the bus. That's fine. So I collect another guy, Antoine Griezmann, which is most likely unknown here, unless you're really into soccer.
Never heard of him. Sure, he's a stud.
There you go.
Sure, he's a stud.
Yeah. That's really what I collect. And in the hobby right now, with trends, it's just not. It doesn't do it for me when it comes to pricing, because it's gone down a little bit. But most of the stuff I collect, it's not going to be from a new release, because game one, especially in football, now in soccer, depending on the product, it's going to be player one if you're lucky, or it's going to be the exporting good patch that everybody's bashing about with football, for instance. And I'm just not a fan of mass printing.
Yeah.
The base, even the silvers nowadays, or all those made up rainbows who it doesn't make any sense to me, like the giraffe print, the kookaburra, the elephant, the
I saw an alligator print today out of the national packs, the silver packs, the KG
Yeah.
alligator card. There you go. Put together a whole zoo if we want. Screw the
Yeah.
rainbow.
Do you enjoy having a hobby zoo when it comes to your PC, or?
Yeah, so it goes two ways. So I won't go into depth with it here for the people listening. But I have a really so I'm a Boston fan, so I collect mostly Celtics, Patriots, Red Sox, Bruins stuff. But I do have an odd PC of Jay Crowder. I guess you could say I super collect them, and it's really tedious right now. The guys that I talk to, I don't find it fun when the checklist comes out and there's 17,000 to make up a rainbow, and there's peacock and zebra and purple, orange swirl choice, this or that. But it's cheap. It gives me a chance to kind of narrate the hobby, right? Like I can go through. So my Crowder stuff's all in binders, and like the first 7 years of his career are in one binder. And then last year alone took up a whole binder, right? So that says something about the hobby, about the mass production. I find that stuff really interesting. And then there's like fun stuff that comes out of it. You do get some. I never would have thought. I hate Mosaic as a brand. I think it's redundant. But the Mosaic Peacock cards look great. They really do. So that could be a fun little insert in a different product. They could just scrap Mosaic and make that, some sort of insert or something. So I mean, there's stuff that you think you're not going to like and is great, and the stuff you think you'll love and isn't. But it's definitely good to see some of the prices come down. I think they have watered down the hobby so much that it makes it difficult for people to know what to focus on, and so that gives some of the collectors some different lanes to hop in and try some stuff out. Like I said, with the low ones, kind of like you with the Parker stuff, like status, right? That was not something you knew much about, and you and I were chatting back and forth and kind of sharing some images, and you were able to put together a rainbow for outside of a one-on-one for pretty cheap money and just had some fun chasing cards. And I think that's what I get out of as frustrating as it can be with these huge checklists and rainbows. It does give me something to hunt and focus on. So that's enjoyable, but it's definitely, as the print runs have increased over the years, it's been getting less and less enjoyable. But I'm pot committed now, dude. I'm going to continue to make some bad decisions and keep chasing these Jay Crowder cards, just like you'll make some bad decision along the way too. But then you get cool stuff. Like, I mean, if people don't follow you, it's what, Nebrolian_PC is your Instagram, right? And
yep.
Like so when you've got Panini does like the nationality themed autograph cards, and you have a Tony Parker, right? France theme with like the flag in the back. Like they do stuff along the way that is really, really cool like that.
Mm-hmm.
Jump into and really is sort of ties your whole PC together.
Yeah, I think it's really about finding what speaks to you. Of course, I guess if you're a super collector of a specific player, you're going to go for those international treasures, because that's the set that you're referring to. Yeah, it's finding what gets you going. And problem is, as it gets popular, they're going to try to milk you, and what once was original and stood out. It's just like, man, you mentioned Mosaic. They've got some really cool parallels. I agree with you. Some of them were taken from Select, and for example, the Black Fanatic or Finite or whatever you want to call it. Let's blame it on the French accent and pronunciation. Was extremely popular and extremely rare with Select, and nowadays nebulas or peacocks or even the black, they all look like cards who used to be one of one not so long ago, a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. So it's really about finding what gets you going. So for you, it's Crowder, it's the Celtics, it's the Red Sox.
Crowder gets me going, buddy. Crowder gets me
going. No, absolutely. No, I know he gets you going. He does, because I know you. Sometimes you tell us like, oh man, I got that card, not really excited about it, but he's my guy, and you've got that completionist
I do. Yeah.
mentality that drives me completely insane. I would be unhappy if I had that type of discipline, which is why I collect so many different guys across so many sports.
It's interesting what you brought up about the one of the things that I find as I dabble into sports other than football is the inconsistencies across some of the parallels, right? Like in his every basketball release that has a gold vinyl card, that's a 101, and usually a hobby-based product 1 of 1. But then I see him in football and they're like out of 5 or something. You know, like that inconsistency drives me nuts. But I think that's a good transition to our next topic. But before we do that, are we supposed to like break and talk about Zion cases or something? I don't use them. Do you use Zion cases? Great
or
product,
the protein bars or something.
Oh yeah. I do. I could use some protein bars, but I wish if Zion cases made something for non-graded cards, maybe I'd be interested. But I crack all my slabs. But that's for another episode. Yeah.
Hey bros, Chaz here reminding you about Steve's Crack Service. You need that HGA cracked? Send it to Steve. Crack. SGC crack. Beckett, you know it bros. Crack. And that sweet PSA. Crack. So whether it's your card case in a slab that needs cracked, a plumber's crack, or just that sweet crack,
I want some crack.
head on over to Instagram and hit up Showley2003. Get that crack.
Wow, that sounds like a very valid point.
So yeah, I think we can move on to the next topic. What do you conceive? Yeah. So yeah, let's spice it up. So we all know that Panini has lost basically of their licenses. So Fanatics is going to take over in a couple of years, which kind of seems I always still got plenty of time to see what they're going to do, if they kind of redeem themselves. So I see some people still having a positive opinion and still pretty optimistic about the next couple of years ahead of us. But you know, we're going to transition soon. It's going to, you know, people are going to talk more and more about that at the end of an era, I guess. But we're still stuck with Panini. So do you have any expectations for, you know, the incoming month, years when it comes to Panini?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go 3 ways with this one. 1, something I've seen them do that I actually really appreciate. 2, something I'm hopeful of, and then 3, kind of end with the negative because I'm just a jerk. I'm gonna end that way. And I'm gonna throw a disclaimer out there. Hugo and I have no inside info as to what Panini will do. We're actually probably the least qualified SOBs to be talking about this stuff, but let's throw it out there. One thing I want to give Panini credit for is, unfortunately, over the years they've relied very heavily on redemptions, and they haven't all got fulfilled. So you can't change the past, right? Like that is what it is. That wasn't a good part of their company. I used to break not a ton of cases, but a lot of wax. I loved wax when I first got into it. So I have redemptions open going back to 2012. And once they lost their license, I went straight in there and I cashed all of them. I said, I don't, just give me the points, right? And it's taken years. It's when did Panini lose their, Fanatics announced 1 year, 2 years ago, that I did it that day. I even had some rare Crowder stuff in there. And I said, nope, I don't, these are all, old, and just give me the points. I finally started to get the points. So I've had like a couple thousand Panini points, which I think are worthless. Panini has, I think, gone out of their way to make additional rewards products so that people could burn up those points. So like recently I got a couple packs of, this will tell you how excited, I don't even remember what it's called, Panini Profile maybe. It was just rewards packs, 2 cards per pack. Each pack cost, I don't know, 1,000 points, whatever, right? But it was a multi-sport product. It was a good checklist. It was LaMelo. It was, Trevor Lawrence. It was a good checklist. Base cards, out of 10 golds and 1-on-1s. And I opened them up, nice looking cards. I could have sat there and waited for a Jeff Foster, jersey swatch to show up on the reward site, or I could have bought quote unquote this product that Panini made just for the reward site. And I appreciate that they're giving collectors a way to use up those points before they lose their license, because they could easily give all of us 18,000 rewards points and shut down their website one day, and those points can't go anywhere. So I do appreciate that. It seems like they're making a concerted effort there. I am optimistic about what they'll do with their relic museum. Recently, Jay Crowder has his first relic card since 2017, and it is a piece of material that they've never had. They apparently have green and gold shorts from a St. Patrick's Day game in 2016. Never knew they had. It's never shown up. So they've had an entire set of shorts for a guy like Crowder stashed away that 5 years later they're now cutting up and putting into cards. Negative side, unfortunately, their Suns cards, which is gold and green patch in it, so it's kind of a mess, right? I wish they would do a retro design there, but I am excited to see what do they have for game used relics, and how can they maximize that. I don't know, like you've talked about with football, that game used isn't the norm there. So do they have some old stuff that they can start making some high end product to get into collectors' hands? Will Fanatics keep the trend of less game worn stuff? So can Panini give us a few years of some nice game worn material? I don't know, but I'm optimistic that they have. Like I said, if they got Crowder shorts lying around, who knows what else they have. And then what I'm not excited about is for them to mass produce and just hit the print run left and right out of a bunch of junk. And I feel like that's going to be the norm, and we're just going to get piles and piles and piles of stuff printed at us, and I think we're going to see rainbows of 99 cards by the time 2026 comes around. But I'm excited to see what it's going to be like, and I'll find a way to collect. And if it means I go with more non-Panini stuff, I've been doing some Leaf stuff. That there's always a way to collect, right? So how about yourself? What are you anticipating? Maybe from the football realm, or even as a dabble in a basketball type collector? Where are you coming from with this Panini stuff?
Yeah, so I would say that I would kind of say that I'm at that point. I don't consider myself a dabble in basketball, because for the past 2 years, it's been Tony Parker and Andre Johnson have been my focus. So that's really, I'm focused. I'm laser focused. When it comes to basketball, if we just talk about Panini, I'm not overly concerned about Tony Parker, because, well, he's retired. If every time they've launched or released a product and he was part of the checklist, relics, jumbo patches, whatnot, it's always been game worn. So nothing makes me think of they're going to stop doing that. They might if they're out of material, obviously. But when it comes to basketball, if I'm just being selfish and think about my collection, what can I get from Panini as a Tony Parker collector? I'm pretty confident and comfortable I'll be able to acquire some nice cards until they lose the license. When it comes to football, it's much more let's go PC, politically correct, not personal collection. I'm not as optimistic. I'm not enthused about football, because prior to that loss of license, they were just half-assing it. If you follow some football accounts on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Blowout, you're going to see that they release until now cards of goats of the game, and with freaking Mitchell and Ness patches, it's been sadly a trend for the past couple of years. You see that high-end products such as Flawless, or they don't necessarily include game-worn patches or jerseys for veterans, which is one thing for rookies, obviously. We all are used to that, but for veterans, ending up with napkins that are event worn, now I feel like people would be satisfied, because there's been such a dump off of Dick's Sporting Goods jerseys and Mitchells and Ness and stuff that don't make any sense at all, that I'm absolutely concerned when it comes to patches and relics for football. I agree with you when it comes to the mass production. It's already been a big problem. We've seen it across all sports: football, basketball, soccer. Like COVID 2020, people would just buy freaking base Zions for $600 or silvers for $600. I mean, what's the print run? We'll never know. Maybe Cal, if he can do some research, could come up to maybe a close number, or maybe, I'm not trying to put any pressure on you, Cal. But it's just, I mean, it could get worse. I kind of sound defeated because I'm kind of defeated in the way that I'm just setting my expectations are so low that I'm like, yeah, let's just ride the wave. And if you collect guys who've been in the league for years and have cards pre-Panini, that would be, yeah, go for those, or target the product that your player or your team has game worn patches, because it's just not going to get better. As an Andre Johnson collector, I see stuff, cards released this year or last year from, I've seen flawless cards, one of one. It's just event worn, player worn. People are dropping hundreds of dollars, and I just don't get it. Doesn't make any sense. But it's our responsibility as consumers, and I'm choosing my words. Consumers, if we buy, I mean, why would they change? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I think they're just going to ride the wave. It would be amazing for Panini to keep doing stuff like you mentioned, Crowder. Yeah, out of the blue, you've got some incredible pieces of history. So yeah, the color combo, Suns card with a Celtics uniform may not be that great, but probably buying for the material itself, not the design of the card. Especially if you're looking at Leaf, for instance. I know some of us are. You gotta pick your battle.
Nothing wrong with Leaf. If you want patches, the rest of this stuff is trash. But in my opinion, sorry,
I agree.
Project that on people. But they jumbo patches is nice looking stuff, and I'm with you. I don't understand people paying premiums for for insignificant relics, right? So relics that didn't even touch the player. You could talk me into understanding the player one stuff. They used it at the photo shoot that's used to create the card. Okay, there's some significance there. They wore the jacket at the press conference for the All-Star game or the Pro Bowl. Who cares about the Pro Bowl? But you know what I mean. But yeah, but I don't think people really pay attention to that stuff. They buy an RPA because they're told they have to buy an RPA, and it still blows my mind that people pay 10x for a National Treasure RPA out of 99 than they will a flawless game used rookie year RPA out of like 25. But it's what the hobby is, and like you said, if the hobby doesn't change what they're collecting, then Panini's gonna provide what's demanded, right? And so and it's especially if they can do it for less money, and I think that's something we have to worry about with Fanatics too. I mean, in the end, it's a business model, and so if they can produce RPAs by going to Dick's Sporting Goods and buying stuff off the clearance rack instead of hiring, number one pick Joe Smith to come down and wear the stuff, then they're going to do that, right? So it's an interesting take. So let's any final thoughts before we ping pong to the next our final topic here?
Yes, I'd like also to point out that we've been, I by no means consider myself a veteran. I didn't start collecting yesterday or last week, but I try to remember when I started, I was collecting Will Fuller, who was a wide receiver for the Texans, first rounder. It's like you don't know better, so you get, there's a piece of jersey, and you just don't pay attention. So it's your it's the lack of knowledge that also hurts you as a consumer, because it's a piece of jersey, you know.
I did it. I did what Ricky did. I muted myself. I was just gonna say lack of knowledge. You're absolutely right on that. So, but let's jump to our third and final topic here before we bore the people too much. And Hugo, both you and I, we're collectors at heart. We do this because we like making bad decisions and putting together collectibles, whether it be sets or rainbows or autographs or just memories from our childhood, which I think is what really does it, right? It ties you to your home, ties you to your fandom. Same with me, ties me to my history as a fan, watching games with my family, my friends, and that's really what we love about it all. So let's end on a positive note. We kind of just crapped on Panini a little bit. Let's end on let's fill me in. How do you keep your love of the hobby going? What keeps you motivated to stay in this? What do you get out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's the corny moment, the cheesy moment. It's it's not about collecting. It's about the people, Steve. It's about the people.
Connections. The connections.
Hashtag
stay positive.
The meaningful connections with friends, the lifelong friends you're going to make throughout this beautiful hobby of ours. No, in all seriousness, it's collecting sports cards. It's not really a social hobby, right? And I enjoy it so much more by connecting with people through social media. Not a big social media person to begin with. I do have personal social media accounts, but I rarely post. But Instagram is really a great platform to share our collections, to connect with people. And, it's going to start, from my experience, by just sending a direct message and complimenting someone's collection, or, hey, I love this card. How did you get there? What's your connection? What's the link? Why do you collect that team or that player? So really the human aspect of this hobby is really what keeps me going. And just like you mentioned, collecting players, sports that speak to me. I've been here in the US for over a decade. Collecting French soccer players, collecting Tony Parker, the occasional Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier, you name it. It's just a way for me to, kind of represent where I'm from, make it known and aware that, yes, I'm French, and I'm French American now, but I'm proud of who I am. And with Texan, it's just, well, we had Hall of Famer or Hall of Famer caliber player in Andre Johnson. There's going to be JJ Watt, of course. It's just like, remembering his accomplishments. It's memories of him with the monster play on Thanksgiving against, freaking Lions or whatever. Sorry, Ricky. That's really chasing memories, or always bringing, like, collecting something that brings you happiness and joy as a way to decompress. Life is hard enough, stressful enough, boring enough at times, that collecting is fun. We're not going to, I think you would agree, we're not going to retire tomorrow should we decide to sell all of our cards. We're not in there for the money, but that's really, yeah, I've got some disposable income. Sure, I could spend the money more wisely, but at the end of the day, it brings me joy. I make new connection, and I don't feel guilty about it. So that's really important about that too. What about you, Steve?
Well, I like that you brought up that we can make better decisions. I mean, I don't see cards as alternative assets, but I do recognize that I could put my money in the stock market and be making money instead of blowing away money. But it's the cost, right? And so I love what you said there, Hugo, about the connections. And I know that comes off as cheesy sometimes, but I just got back from the National and I went with a bunch of guys that I met through the hobby, and I've never done online dating. I tell my wife all the time we're not getting divorced because I would never want to date again. But somehow I made some met some dudes that I'm friends with, and we've gone to Celtics games. We went to a Hall of Fame enshrinement, right? So this is a connection piece to it. And there's guys I'll never meet or haven't met. I was just messaging earlier today with a guy Michael on Instagram, Lakers Forums Gold, and he's a Lakers fan. So but I follow him because I like the cards, right? And we've connected. We've had some conversations. He was actually in the Boston area, and I helped him figure out what card shops to go to, right? So the connections definitely. I think staying interested in the hobby, you have to be willing to participate at whatever level you want. If you're into the investment side of things, find those groups and talk shop with people, right? We're more collectors, and I mean, you're going to try and sell some stuff, but we'll that could be for a different. We can follow up after Watson's playing again to see how that worked out for you. But the other thing that I like to do is I always have some sort of project that's endless that you can't get bored with, right? So over the last year or so, I call my little side projects, cheap little binder projects. And I've been collecting autographs of players that came from Massachusetts. Why? I don't know. It's another way to remind myself of different players or look up different teams, and just something fun to do. So I'm always doing something that helps me stay engaged with collecting cards, because then I'll go post it online and I'll have some interactions with people, which then energize me more. And if it wasn't for the forums and social media, as much as I don't use social media at all for anything else other than my hobbies, I'm in mountain biking groups and card groups, right? I'm not posting pictures of my kids. I'm not wishing my wife happy birthday. I'll do that to her in person. I'm not making a post online. I just don't use it that way, right? But I am posting my cards left and right, right? But it makes connections. So I love what you said about connecting and that helping to spur the love of the hobby, and then the love of the hobby helps more connections if you're willing to go there, right? Consume content, learn some stuff, appreciate some stuff that maybe you don't normally would, but someone else does, and find out why. Like, if you didn't post a narrative of that Tony Parker France autograph, it would just be a picture, right? But you post a little narrative about it, and then I want to ask a question about that. I want to learn, and hey, learn something about some dude that I don't, didn't know about, and I learned about the card and where it came from, and had a nice little conversation. So, like I said, it's a stress relief, but I think it's important to always, find some way of learning about what other aspects of the hobby are out there, and take the time to consume that, and also have some projects you're working on, even if that means you're buying one card a year. What is that card and why are you getting it? What enjoy the chase. But overall, the hobby's a lot of fun. There is a lot of negativity out there, and I can be part of that negative. I'd say critical. There's stuff that I can be definitely critical of. If you follow my content, I'll question stuff. Especially if you DM me, I'll tell you. You and I have some very candid conversations, right, about what we like and don't like. But it's also, that's part of life. You can't just accept everything at face value. You got to be willing to be a little critical, because it helps you figure out what you want to get out of it, right? So. But overall, yeah, I think my advice for people that are looking for ways to stay engaged in the hobby is to consume content, participate in the social aspects of it, and most of that is online. But go to card shows. If you're at a card show, don't look down at the floor. Look up. Say hello, greet a dealer. If you see a card that resonates with you, say, "Hey, a great card." Make a comment about it. You never know what conversations you'll have. And then find a project to work on. Have something you're working on other than just chasing what everyone else is chasing. Find something that's meaningful to you, and it can be something like picking up one or two. The most recent autograph that I picked up for my mass players collection binder was a $2 Noah Vonleh, on ComC, which in real money that's like $1.50, right? So dirt cheap, nothing to it, but it's cool to have. It's a nice looking card, and it gives me a reason to keep chasing something new. So I think that's how I personally stay invested and engaged in the hobby, and keep going from there. And it's gonna, I think trying times are ahead of us, Hugo, to go back. I said we're gonna end positive here. I almost swore. I'm gonna crap all over Panini and say I think trying times are ahead of us, because I think they're gonna burn us out. But when you have those connections and those projects you're working on, you can always bypass that. So I'll end there.
And what I would like to say, let's stay corny again and cheesy, because why not be positive, right, Steven? It's to a certain extent, I would argue that we can all be a quote influencers, but in a positive way. For instance, I mainly collect football. I started collecting sports cards with football, but by interacting with other collectors, guys like you, like Kyle, other guys, Jeff, the Tony Kukoc guy, Mr. Carter, all those guys, I tried to take something from what you all do and make it my own. For instance, I was not interested in gold refractors to begin with. And I found your collections with Paul Pierce, just to name this one. That was fun. And I told myself, Tony Parker, my guys got some tops gold refractors. Why not go after that? And it's kind of emulating what you do, what someone else's do. I'm not trying to be a fanboy or a stan guy, but it's also super fun because I get to pick your brain up, and if you have questions about football, that, well, I'm more into that, so you can ask questions, or hey, I'm looking for that type of project for a set. So the champ is here a couple of weeks or month ago you talked about. We kind of all brainstorm, and I think that's what makes the hobby fun, because what I know, I'm going to share it with you. You may like it or not. If you do, hey, that's another side project for you. Or me with Tony Parker and Status. I was like, oh, Status is pretty cool. Yeah. Steve, Kyle, they've got some cool stuff they've shown me, and it gets me going. So yeah, the human factor should not be overseen or neglected, because it helps you collect. It improves your collection tremendously, at least for myself.
I love it. And I think my takeaway from what you're saying is two things. One, you saw Kukoc ITB's page and then justified making some really poor decisions and buying some gold refractors when they're at the peak of their value. And you're a Boston Steve fanboy. So I think that's a good way to wrap things up here, Hugo. That's my takeaway here. So
come on now.
let's throw some shout outs. I just want to thank Chad for initiating this. I'm sure there was a little delay when we messaged Chad saying we were recording tonight. I'm sure he went and messaged Tim and Ricky, and they all did an emphatic woo and knew that they could have less time recording. So hopefully, they're enjoying whatever their time off is. I hope they enjoy it, because this was an honor to do. I hope you guys listening enjoy this stuff. So thanks, Chad, Ricky, Tim, for inviting us, and thanks for everyone for taking the time to listen if you made it through this far. So Hugo, any closing remarks here, bud?
No, it was great catching up with you. Thanks to the guys from Back to the Future. We love them. Very honored to be part of the episode. Hope we didn't bore you too much. Two of the hobby's worst accents. It's fair to say.
Yeah, but you know what? It mixes things up. Come on. I got my thick monotone one. You've got, guys are driving right now, and I told you, their wives are listening to that accent, and their wives are just like, okay, yeah, I'm down with this. So, I think we offered a little something different, and it's a little bit of something for everything. So, I hope everyone enjoyed it, and be well, everybody.
All right, bye-bye.